Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for coming. We're going to talk today. Already missing my cue. We're here to talk today about building modern applications with data on Heroku, Salesforce, and AWS. This is a talk sponsored by Heroku. I'm thrilled to have you all here and very grateful for your interest and support. I see some familiar faces, some friends, colleagues, customers, and it means a lot to me. Thank you. By show of hands, what brought you here today? Was it Heroku? Salesforce? AWS? All the above. Awesome. OK, good. That's promising. So I'm Scott Truitt. That's me. I'm a product management director at Salesforce Heroku. I run our managed data services business, which I'll explain in more detail shortly. I've been at Heroku for 18 months now, but I have almost 8 years in the cloud game. So while not exactly an OG, I have been around for a while, so also kind of not an OG. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe this is my 5th reInvent. I couldn't tell you what I did yesterday, so it's hard to really go back that far. I'm honored to be on the stage, to partner with our friends at Amazon, and to be a small part of the many amazing things we do here. I've been fortunate to work with developers in companies large and small, relatively ancient, at least in the internet era, and brand new. I've seen my share of rapid success stories and some slow burn flameouts as well. And I have some ideas about how to get more of the latter and more of the former and fewer of the latter. And most of that comes down to minimizing the complexity and cost of developing software, knowing when to chase the shiny new technology versus when to use the tried and true, and bringing all of an organization's diverse skill sets to bear in a larger, more concerted effort. Turns out I'm also a bit of a contrarian, and I can also be a bit bold at times. And so I'll just say it. For all my love for what this conference represents, I believe that constantly reinventing everything isn't the best use of our limited time, resources, and human capital. We have businesses to run, customers to satisfy, and that's exactly where Heroku excels. Before I go any further, I should tell you that Salesforce is a publicly traded company. You should make decisions based on currently announced product, not my dreams and desires that I'm going to say here today. And while we're on the subject of full disclosure, I tend to talk fast. I have been known to wander, so I have a tight script to stick to today. I'm going to do my best. Expect this to take about 30, 35, maybe 40 minutes from start to finish. So there's plenty of time for questions and discussion at the end. And I don't have any elaborate demos, but you should know that everything I mentioned is real. It's available today. It's well documented, fully supported, all that good stuff by a team of experts. OK. At a high level, I'm going to discuss what modern applications represent, with a special focus on how data drives us all forward. I'll also talk about how Heroku's history as the first DevOps platform and its evolution to embrace enterprises applies to this new world, how increasingly complex demands on teams and technology impact our work as partners in this effort, and where things might go from there. And as an aside, I love our Trailhead characters and the design of these slides, and I couldn't help but use them to tell a little story as we progress. So imagine we're starting out the day full of promise, just waking up and about to venture out into the wilderness, and we'll go on this journey with them. And there we are. So the simple fact of the matter is that everything is more complex now. The kinds of modern apps and experiences that customers expect are driven by highly personalized data. That's dynamic data. It's often real-time data, too, but it should be and can be informed by an understanding of past behavior and preferences found in relational data. This is about more than just using data, though. It's about turning that data into knowledge, understanding, and action. Now, this data also lives in multiple clouds, and some even exist in private data centers, which means distributed architectures are a must. We no longer have the luxury of building everything in one environment or as a single monolith. And distributed architectures mean multi-directional app and data workflows. And those must be seamless and secure. So that means integration and orchestration are now higher order concerns. How else will you take advantage of new tool sets and technologies if you can't bring them together like so? All of which means multidisciplinary teams are a must. given the expertise necessary to capture data at all levels of the org, to process it, analyze it, derive value from it, create more of it, use it, act on it, store it for regulatory purposes, eventually dispose of it, and more. It's an incredibly complex undertaking with rapidly evolving tool sets and technologies and increasing demands from the business to deliver in short order. And if all these interactions weren't complex enough in isolation, they're even more complex when you combine the infrastructure, architecture, and people demands in one. For instance, you could have one team own everything, meaning the full solution stack and delivery of the app or experience, but that would likely dilute the expertise needed in each specialized area. But also, as you bring on more specialized teams and diverse workloads from different services, complexity can spiral out of control. So finding the right balance here is critical. Keeping things together yet well-bounded is paramount, and delivering value, again, is everything. But there should be no debate about why this is all worth doing. Data is the driving force of this effort. We must maximize our understanding of customers' unique needs and craft memorable experiences to fulfill them. To do that, we need seamless and secure ways of moving data across these three boundaries of infrastructure, architecture, and people. Our goal must be to get the data in the application so it can inform, influence, and ultimately inspire a better customer experience. But on top of that, handling data in general can be risky, and pushing it across cloud boundaries requires a series of sound practices to ensure it remains safe and secure. This is especially true for sensitive and regulated data. But any significant breach will likely end up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and probably also at the top of Hacker News. As I alluded to at the beginning, architects, developers, designers, data scientists, IT leaders, and product managers like me should have our success measured in our ability to deliver value to our users and our businesses. And that's perhaps more controversial than it should be, but I'll make my stand on that hill any day. Chasing every bright and shiny new object or every bright and shiny new announcement often means you're not building for your customers, you're playing with new tech. Some experimentation is key, of course, but it needs to be in the context of a larger business goal. And we must always remember who we are building for, and then we can go figure out how to build for it. And all too often, I've seen those things reversed. After all, it's the who's that have the money, and it's the how that causes the pain. And there are no points for pain when you're in the implementation details. It's hard enough as it is. All right, context. Cody has his map. We're going to scale that mountain. But first, let's talk about Heroku. For me, the story starts with our developer-friendly experience, with the first true DevOps platform that removed all the operational complexity of running software in the cloud and truly multiplied the effectiveness of developers. Heroku is also the platform that taught so many developers how to code for the cloud, and still does, whether you're a student or a hobbyist at a startup or a scale-out or in a big enterprise or government institution. I have to say, I'm still blown away by the history of our innovation and execution. And while certainly not on the same scale as AWS, we continue to push the boundaries of what's possible and lead the way on defining what's desirable. We invest at all levels of primitives, building blocks, integrations, and polished experiences to deliver the best possible service for developer productivity. And note that we were born in October 2007, which kind of blows my mind. We launched commercially with a free and paid multi-tenant service in April 2009, which was, by my calculation, 10.5 years ago. We delivered the first database as a service with Heroku Postgres in December 2010. We published the 12-factor app manifesto in July 2012, which ushered in an era of cloud-native development. We debuted Heroku Connect in May 2014, which brought Salesforce data into Heroku Postgres for app developers, and it now allowed new use cases like syncing enriched data back into Salesforce, all without heavy configuration or coding to make that possible. We released Heroku Private Spaces, which is a fully managed and network-isolated Heroku for enterprises, in January 2016. We brought the first managed Apache Kafka service to market in September 2016. We released an even more advanced Heroku Shield Spaces, for sensitive and regulated application and data development in June 2017. And I had to meet so many other worthy milestones, talk about integrated CI/CD pipelines, enterprise team management, a vibrant partner ecosystem, et cetera, due to space constraints, but hopefully you get the idea. So through it all, we remain steadfast in our belief that great applications and experiences come from inspired and productive developers. We strive to make their days productive from the first to the last and every day that follows. And that's no small feat, but it's one of our finest features. We obsess over every detail, looking for ways to delight developers with thoughtful touches, with every touch where it belongs, and only when it's needed. And we aim to make it easy to experiment, iterate, and innovate by removing the associated costs and complexity with that work. I like to think that we make the hard things easy, the right way fast, and everything accessible and affordable. And that's kind of the whole point of a platform, I think. And yeah, that is the whole point of a platform. I won't belabor each point here, but I will stress that integrated and fully managed DevOps platform is a force multiplier for every developer. Heroku allows them to focus on their apps and data without care or concern for configuring things to work together, maintaining things over time, updating the underlying software, worrying about uptime, and so much more. Okay, I told you we're going to scale that mountain. It turns out that all the value we provide in developer agility and flexibility is even more desirable for enterprises. But we also need to cover off on safety and security. So as with our developer-friendly value prop, we bake many of our opinions and best practices into the service itself. So when it comes to enterprises, we went big with a fully managed and fully supported service, built-in HA for everything, and designed it to be secure by default. We aggressively monitor for anomalies, vulnerabilities, transparently update the service underneath so you're always protected. And that's also enterprise developers can focus on building those great applications and experiences. And that's why so many brands, both large and small, trust us with their apps and data. So lots of context out of the way. Let's get into some more detail and use cases, pardon me. If you're an enterprise, it's a virtual certainty that some portion of your business runs on Salesforce. But how is that relevant to developers? Consider that business users, those who run sales, marketing, support, communities, and more, generate some of the most valuable data about your actual customers and prospects. This data is priceless, and Heroku Connect lets you unlock its value by syncing that data with Heroku Postgres. As you might expect, that experience is polished and easy to use. There's minimal configuration, and there's really no operational burden either. It's the ultimate cheat code for using Salesforce data to drive the kinds of personalized apps and experiences that your customers require. In fact, as business teams and development teams can no longer operate in isolation. The people that market, sell, and support the product can both inform and learn from the people that build it. And I think that's a really important point. It's a historical, maybe even tragic accident that they've diverged, but it's a divide that we're actively bridging and repairing. I mentioned Heroku private spaces earlier. Enterprises go this route when they want a developer-friendly environment with all the safety and security we've mentioned before of a dedicated environment. And with a simple CLI command, we can spin up a private space in any of 6 global regions around the world, all in a matter of minutes, too. Once deployed, your developers have that same great Heroku experience with the added benefit of enterprise-grade secure network topologies, and I think that's a killer feature. I also mentioned Heroku Shield earlier, and enterprises go this additional step when they have sensitive or regulated data, a need to build high-compliance applications, or a well-founded paranoia about developing in the cloud. So our Shield customers are often in healthcare and life sciences or financial services, but we do see a number of those security-conscious customers here, too. And yes, we can deploy a Shield space just as quickly as a private space. We regularly audit and maintain compliance with industry standards like PCI and HIPAA. Also, yes, you guessed it, developers can focus on building great apps and experiences with sensitive and regulated data. And speaking of regulated data, this is my world, we offer a number of fully managed data services in Heroku Shield, including Heroku Shield Postgres, Heroku Shield Connect, and the recently announced and slightly unwieldy to say out loud, Apache Kafka on Heroku Shield. Heroku Shield Redis should be out soon. All are quick and easy to deploy, offer the same security and compliance baked in, it's not bolted on, and require little to no ongoing effort to maintain. Again, that's the developer flexibility we always talk about. We also recently announced several new trusted data integrations for data services in private and shield spaces. These integrations expand Heroku's security and trust boundary to cover the connections to external resources and data that passes through them. They enable true multi-cloud app and data architectures and keep developers focused on delivering value versus managing infrastructure. And they expose new options for data enrichment, analysis, learning, archiving, and more. So let's talk about those in more detail. Fact is, most enterprises have workloads on AWS. That's just the way it is. We were delighted to see the AWS Private Link announcement recently and added support for seamless and secure connections between your AWS VPCs and Heroku data services. So this integration allows developers to use data and resources in both Heroku and AWS. You can build distributed architectures with ease and truly leverage the best technology and tool set for the job. And since Heroku runs on AWS, AWS Private Link keeps all the traffic on the, you guessed it, AWS private network. So there's no more external connections going over the public internet. It's easy to configure, it's durable over time, it's truly set it and forget it. So we have this feature certified for HIPAA compliance and expect to have PCI compliance in the spring of next year. And here's what this looks like for our Apache Kafka managed data service. Heroku Redis is the same, and Heroku Postgres has even more, as you'll soon see. Okay, we also know that many enterprises have workloads on other public clouds or even in private data centers, and that often those resources hold valuable but occasionally inaccessible data sets. So we built an integration over mutual TLS, which has end-to-end encryption and mutual authentication, and it uses that to unlock value while ensuring the safety and security of that data as it moves over the public internet. So Heroku Postgres via mutual TLS requires that both the server and the client verify their certificates and identities to ensure that each one is authenticated and authorized to share data. And the entire mutual TLS configuration and lifecycle is managed by Heroku to maintain security and meet compliance standards. It's designed to be configured once and updated every year with new certificates, So the integration recedes into the background and developers can focus on their work. It's truly set it and forget it here too. And here's what this looks like for our Heroku Postgres managed data service. This is an important picture to keep in mind as it represents the ability to move data across cloud boundaries. Whether you're moving from public cloud to private data center to Heroku to Salesforce or any combination thereof, this is a killer integration feature for Heroku, which actually it brings our total to 4. So if you look at the very top, our first one is the app plus Postgres database, which was the original design pattern that drove the first decade of cloud development at Heroku. It remains a key driver in helping developers scale from emerging startup to a high-growth company to a massive enterprise on Heroku. Second, off to your left, the Salesforce CRM data integration with Heroku Postgres. As you know now, it enables developers to build highly personalized apps and experiences, and that bidirectional sync of Heroku Connect makes it possible to move data back and forth between Salesforce and Postgres in Heroku. Third, off to your right, we just talked about it, the private link integration unlocks an ecosystem of data resources on AWS and greater architectural choice in building data-centric applications. This is huge. Fourth and finally, as I just mentioned, the Heroku Postgres via mutual TLS integration extends Heroku's trust and security boundary beyond AWS to cover connections to other external resources, no matter where it lives. So it enables true multi-cloud app and data architectures, and again, keeps developers focused on delivering value, not managing infrastructure. So this picture alone should cover about 80 to 90% of your workflows and your workloads. It can be configured and deployed in minutes anywhere around the world, which means you can spend the rest of your time and effort on the edges, validating and maximizing the value of new tool sets and technologies without neglecting the core of your application. So you can use commodity compute and storage when necessary. You can explore bleeding edge technology when appropriate. I always liken this to reaching into a bag of knives and hoping you grab the handle, but my friends Scott and Chad reminded me last night that there's value in grabbing the blade too, even if you bleed, at least you know. So this is truly a best of both worlds outcome. Developer agility and flexibility, enterprise safety and security. And I believe that Heroku is the ultimate cheat code to minimizing that cloud complexity and maximizing developer productivity, which means faster time to market, quicker iteration cycles, and far more customer success. Okay, so let's bring it all together. This picture implies we made it to the top, but we're not quite leisurely descending just yet. We are, however, primed with a deeper understanding of what Heroku brings to our problem space. So revisiting my thesis from before, distributed architectures, multi-directional app and data workflows, multidisciplinary teams, and now an additional requirement for strict application and data security. Do you see what I see? As I mentioned earlier, the kinds of modern apps and experiences that customers expect are driven by highly personalized data, dynamic data, real-time data, informed by an understanding of past behavior, past preferences that's often found in relational data. This is more than using data. This is about turning data into knowledge, understanding, and action. So these new apps should bend to individual preferences. They should take into account that everything we know is subject to change on a whim. What we're driving to is something more akin to an experience than an application, an intuitive and perceptive companion that always knows what you need at any moment, or has a simple and straightforward way of finding out, if not. We have all the building blocks, all the integrations, all the best developer experience in place to deliver these kinds of apps and experiences on Heroku. So let's explore what that looks like. First, we must architect for the inevitable. Whether you standardize on something like Heroku Postgres, or Apache Kafka on Heroku, or even both, you'll need the ability to iterate on and extend that architecture over time. Specialization is only going to increase, and we should embrace that fact by experimenting with and ultimately leveraging the best team and tool for the job. Many of you are likely well on your way to embracing microservices, multiple data services, third-party integrations. And this is a continuation of that best of both worlds approach, or perhaps I should say best of all worlds. Likewise, a healthy bias toward existing data sets and data sources is key, using them strategically to combine, enrich, and make new data from old is one of the fastest ways to add differentiated value. These strategies are only going to become more important over time. The cost of building everything from scratch is even more prohibitive when you compare it to the opportunity of using what's already there for you. This trend is impossible to resist. So Heroku has everything you need to jumpstart these efforts and deliver on this promise. Second, we must think about data in motion over data at rest. Consider that a traditional brick-and-mortar retailer can't sell inventory that's sitting in a warehouse. Likewise, developers can't put data to use if it's not well integrated and flowing in and out of that larger app architecture. And I'll say it again, the old boundaries and constraints of app and data development are falling. They're falling because they're failing. They just don't work anymore. This is a feature, not a bug. This is great. We should embrace it. As before, those that can think beyond ownership and embrace access have new advantages. Those opportunities to harvest and leverage data exist in the public cloud and exist in your private data center, I'm sure. So Heroku, once again, has everything you need to jumpstart these efforts and deliver on this promise, and we're working on even more. Third, we must extend the traditional development team to embrace and combine adjacent skills. This one is near and dear to me. Given the complexity of these new architectures and workflows, no one person can lay claim to expertise in every domain. It's time to find new ways to collaborate. Data scientists and data engineers belong on app development teams. I've always believed that. Data scientists and designers are natural pairs for exploring new use cases and sources of user value. Absolutely true. Data engineers and traditional app developers are a killer combination for putting data to work at scale and with speed. I could go on, but these things are really important. The cost of keeping these skills separate is simply too high. Manual handoffs between these skill sets cause a loss of fidelity, lengthen time to market. And once a product is shipped, manual handoffs ensure longer cycles to refine and improve the product. It just isn't worth it. It's only when we integrate these skills that we'll execute faster and deliver more dynamic products. And I'll say it again, Heroku has everything you need to jumpstart these efforts and deliver on this promise. And we're working on even more, too. And last but not least, we must adopt tools and processes with strict application and data security. Truly, none of this is possible, nor should it even be permissible without strict security and compliance controls. Every solution component and integration between them must be protected. Secure by default is the only way forward. So it should come as no surprise that Heroku has everything you need to jumpstart these efforts and deliver on this promise too. We're working on new things in each of these 4 domains, and I couldn't be more excited by what we have in store, but I can't tell you about it here today. Okay, so we made it. What's next? Long story short, you tell me. I want to hear from you. And we're building this for you. We're actively listening and learning to better understand what works and what needs to change. But I'd much rather build this with you than for you. So please ask questions or find me afterward if you want to discuss in more detail. And I want to thank you again for your time today. I hope you found this interesting, thought-provoking, maybe even valuable. I've been talking about many of these things for the past 8 years or so, refining my intuition and understanding, testing my theories, learning from all of you. I've never brought it all together until now, so this is a fun exercise for me. But as I said before, I'd rather work with you to help make it even better. So you're welcome to email me. You're welcome to troll me on Twitter, whatever you like to do. I knew I would be fast, but thank you very much for your time.